Welcome to another edition of Live with Brent and Lee. The night's Thursday night instead of Wednesday. Got really busy and didn't make it home in time last night for our show, Brent. So here we are tonight. And tonight we're talking about should you buy or should you wait? We're going to go over the Fed tonight, what they're saying. We're going to go over what some experts are saying about interest rates. We're going to talk about interest rates tonight. We're also going to talk about some new loan limits, right, Brent?
That's right. That's right. New conforming loan limits.
We're going to throw in some stuff about some investment property. And we also are going to talk to you about what we think is happening in the market right now and what you're experiencing as far as price drops and homes sitting on the market longer than they have been, because they are definitely sitting on the market longer. But if this is the first time you've been in my channel, my name is Lee Brickey. And on this channel, we talk about everything real estate in Palm Beach County and the Treasure Coast. And we're joined by our good friend Brent Starks from United Lending to give us all of the financial information we need. Right, Brent?
That's right. Good to be here tonight.
And Brent has started his own YouTube channel, and he's doing pretty good at it. So he's dropping 1 minute videos every day on it, and he's going to start doing some long form. So let's give them the information. We're going to leave it in the information section below, but how do they find you, Brent, on YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube, just Unitas Lending, UNITAS, Unitas Lending.
All right.
Do it. Yeah.
So go to Brent's channel, subscribe. It's also on the bottom of my channel, so you can click on it from there. But so let's get started and look at what the Fed is talking about. This came out of PBS NewsHour. Federal Reserve inflation fight could bring pain and job losses, warns Powell. So it is. This guy is serious about getting inflation down, Brent.
Yeah. The Fed governors last week were out, jawboning about, how they're serious and how they, need to do more. And that's what we saw rates, going up last week, and they seem to go more silent this week. And then the week before the next Fed meeting, they always go silent for a full week. So really will be data dependent versus, them speaking at different events and that type of thing, because sometimes those governors, they tend to get, rambunctious. They get a little aggressive, one way or another, hawkish or dovish. And, and so it's, from that week, it'll be just data dependent that week before the 21st of September.
Right. Well, I think they started too late, and hopefully they don't go too long.
Yeah, but I don't think they want the blame to be left at their feet. I think that's really what they're looking at now. That all the creation of money, the money supply going up to such an extreme amount. 40% increase in just a year and a half. That's a tremendous increase in inflation. That's going to just follow that, just because too many dollars chasing too few goods, and you have supply chain issues to boot to kind of exacerbate the situation. So. They came in late, but I think, it seems to be curbing, certainly doubling interest rates. Certainly our mortgage industry, certainly they've doubled, rates are back up, they're knocking on 6% again this week. So, that's what we're seeing. And so that's going to tap the brakes in the economy, the markets, they're all responding in kind.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that we need to, be aware of. And I mean, right now they're talking about, some experts are saying that, rates could be back, the prime could be back to 2% by the end of the year.
Right.
I don't know if that's possible. I mean, these days things are going, you gotta have a crystal ball to know what's going on. And I mean, and even then, I don't know. It's getting, it's just all over the place. So we're going to talk a little bit about, what the definition of inflation is. If you are on the show with us today, tell us where you're coming from. Say hi, Costas. Hello. And I I tried to get some glasses because I got comments last week that my glasses were, I needed to get non-glare glasses. I went and bought a pair and they didn't work. So they're not working. So I don't know. I don't like them either, but they're still glaring, aren't they?
Yeah, a little bit. I got some non-glare just for this show, and
yeah, I know. I needed some. I got people telling me that I need to get non-glare glasses. Also, I got some comments last week too on our show that that we're just in real estate and we're telling people the good news part of this so that they'll keep buying houses, and that's not the situation here at all. We're giving you our opinion of the market, but we're backing it up with solid information. So I hope that everyone who's listening to this and listens to it every week, because we see a lot of people are listening to the show. If they're not on now, they're listening to it after the fact. That we're here to just give you our opinion from boots on the ground, what we see every single day. Because Brent's doing mortgages and I'm selling houses and my team's selling houses, and we're talking to other agents all over the United States on a daily basis and all over Florida. So we're tied into the market. So a lot of people wonder, we've talked about this in the past, and I found this really great slide here I wanted to show, and let me turn this off. But I thought this is a really good slide, Brent. I thought that you could go through this of how inflation actually contributes to higher mortgage rates, because a lot of people don't really understand the cycle and how that happens when rates go up and rates go down, because we see that happening pretty much weekly now. They'll be down a few points and then they'll go back up. So go through this slide with everyone.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, by definition, inflation causes the U.S. dollar to lose its value. And basically, if we had a marble game and everyone had 5 marbles, they'd all have some value, that type of thing. If you give everyone an additional 10 marbles, they start to lose their value. There's more of them around, right? So when we create currency, basically money out of thin air. That's what pretty much the Treasury does basically, and that enters the bond market. And so the Fed just really literally creates currency. And so when that additional currency hits the market, it's worth less. And so as a second step, it's U.S. dollars loses its value, the value of things not denominated. So it's just in that currency compared to other currencies as well. So you're competing with other currencies at the same time. It also includes mortgage-backed securities. So the value of those drops because they're backed by U.S. dollars. So when the currency is created in the mortgage-backed, number 3, the Wall Street divests itself of mortgage-backed securities. So in other words, those are fixed investments. And so when you have dollars that are worth less, it lowers the value of mortgage-backed securities or mortgage bonds. And so when the price of those bonds drops, the rates go up. And so there's an inverse relationship there. So as the bond drops, interest rates go up because you don't want to, you have to get a higher return, if you will, on your dollars. If you buy a mortgage, let's say you're an investor and you buy a mortgage that's earning 3% and inflation goes up to 7-8%, you're walking backwards. You know what I mean? At 8% inflation, your money is worth 5% less per year. So the value of that investment, that mortgage, you hold a mortgage bond or security, a mortgage security at 3%, it gets worth less and less as inflation goes up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it drops. And so rates are, you have to raise rates on mortgages. And then, so as mortgage bonds prices, the mortgage bond yields rise and then rates go up. So they have to charge higher rates for mortgages to attract money from the equity markets. In other words, the stock market, from other investments, from metals, that type of thing. So, why would you invest at a 3% rate when your inflation's running at 7 or 8%. And so so to attract that money to those types of investments, mortgages as mortgage-backed securities, the rates have to go up to fund the refinances that are in progress, the purchases that are going to continue to occur. And so that's what's needed to happen to fund the current flow of mortgages that are being funded. And so that's why inflation really is anything regarding inflation in the news is going to be anti-mortgage. It's going to increase rates, and this is going to continue until we see inflation get to the point where people start to lose their jobs. That's why the Fed's coming right out and saying, job losses and that type of thing. They're actually looking for them. And actually, that's just a sign, that things are slowing down, because that's the company's natural response. But what it really should do, not so much, have job losses, but basically make companies more efficient processes, to eliminate waste, things that they're doing that don't generate productive activities, that, they're getting more productive activity as opposed to things that aren't as productive. It makes companies more efficient. That's really what's needed, because ultimately we need production. I'll tell people all the time, I said, if we all sat at home and we were all given dollars, and PPP money and, stimulus and all that type of thing, but we're not out producing anything, right? We're not, as a nation, we're not producing anything. The price of those things, we're all given money, the prices of those goods, because the goods are there's less of them, they're scarce, they're more scarce, but the dollars are plenty. Inflation starts to kick in. And so you have to raise rates on things like mortgage-backed securities, because you need to track that money, fund the expenditures. And so that's really how to get out of inflation, because inflation actually is the cure for inflation is inflation, technically, because
Right.
you know what I mean? Because prices go up, people can't afford it, they stop spending money, things slow down, and it cools the economy, and then rates can drop back down. But the price of oil dropping, quite drastically over the last several months, I think is an indicator that is already starting to happening without any job losses. So
I'm
that's
hearing the supply chain starting to loosen up a little bit also.
right.
And I think this is more of a supply problem than an inflationary problem, right? Cash on the street.
Great point.
I heard, and you heard the same thing, this video we were watching, that, the fact that mortgage rates aren't really as high as right. So right now where are we sitting right now? About 5.5.
We're in high fives right now today. Yeah.
Okay.
Last
So
week
inflation is
5.8,
what,
5.9.
9%,
Yeah.
somewhere
8.6,
around
something like that.
9%. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the fact that mortgages are still lower than inflation, I heard, is a telltale sign that the mortgage industry, banks really don't believe that this is going to last that long, that that rates are going to, because they're basically they're giving money away for less than it's worth.
Right. And so I think what you're going to see is we're going to see, that start to change. The bond market's responding to, like this week, for example, in the mid-June, to give you, that's when rates topped out at 6%, roughly 6%. Actually, they ticked it just slightly above 6% in mid-June. The 10-year Treasury, and it's kind of a rear view mirror look, but the 10-year Treasury was about 3.5. The 10-year Treasury, so a 10-year investment in United States bonds for a 10-year term, that it was 3.33 yesterday, and it's vacillated between 3.37 and 3.27. So we're almost up to that again. Just 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were in the high twos, 2.8, 2.9. So I think what that does, actually there's a technical chart you can watch, and you can see where it's almost a double floor, where the bond bottomed out, at 99, which it's basically on the 3.5% coupon. But basically, if you're familiar with Japanese candlestick charts, it's a kind of a technical way of looking at it. Basically, if you get to a level twice, to put it in simple terms, if you hit that level twice, it becomes a floor of support for the bond. In other words, the bond will kind of like hit that level and then tend to bounce off of it. I personally think that that's going to be kind of the line in the sand, that we can't cross that. If we cross that, then the bond could fall further and rates could go above 6%. I just don't see that, because I see things slowing down. I see oil dropping. I see that's usually a really good indicator of transportation, and people are traveling less. Less goods are being shipped, that type of thing. So we're already seeing that comp two down quarters as far as GDP. I think the slowdown is real, and so I think the Fed has accomplished really what they wanted to accomplish. I think we're seeing that.
Well, what do you think about these projections? This just came out.
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The NAR, the National Association of Realtors, they're saying 6% is the top two.
Right.
And if you look, the first is second quarter, the fourth quarter 2022, this coming quarter, upcoming quarter. Fannie Mae has it already down to 4.8. I don't see that. I see it closer to the MBA is. I think we could average 5.2, 5.5. Over the last quarter. But I think, going into the first quarter of 2023, you'll notice they all went down. The first three, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and MBA, are all coming down. The first, I agree with all those. I think that they'll drop early into 2023, because I think we'll see a slowdown. We'll see inflation start to curb, because they can't crash the real estate market entirely, because the real estate market is typically what leads us out of a recession. And so I think they've essentially doubled interest rates on mortgages, and so that's been the effect. And so I think the market's telling them, hey, they've accomplished what they needed to do. The slowdown's already happening. Inflation's showing early signs of slowing, and so in retracing back. So and that's the indicator they're going to be looking for, because they don't want to overdo it either.
Right. And then we're gonna, we're hearing rumors that this is going to be a tough winter for the Northeast Northerners, period. That gas prices to heat their homes is looking at 4 times what they were seeing last year. So I mean, I know that we were up in West Virginia with my wife's mother for a couple of years. Our gas bill, we were in an older home, it was a historical home, but that gas bill was like, it was a huge house, about 4,000 square foot. But our gas bill was like $700 a month.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the average gas bill up north, I mean, what does that run these days? $300-$400 at least.
Oh yeah, at least, right?
Anybody that's on right now, tell us if you're from New York, New Jersey, what your gas bill is monthly. So if you figure, let's say if it's $300-$400, and it goes 4 times, I mean that's going to hurt.
Those poor folks
people are gonna. So that's going to increase the inflationary situation, because it's going to take dollars out of the economy. Right now, I heard last week that 40% of Americans right now are behind on their energy bills anyway, so are their utility bills. So we're already seeing the pinch, and I think that's one of the reasons gas prices have reduced, is that people are reducing the amount of time that they're traveling now. They're not traveling as much, and there's not as much discretionary income out there.
That's what I'm hearing all day long. I'm hearing people like, hey, I'm looking for other sources of income, because, I said, well, there's second jobs here in Florida, certainly. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because,
and we're going to talk a little bit about the job market here, but this is an affordability issue right now in the housing market. And, I do have concerns with rates. I mean, we're seeing, higher end property sell right now, but the lower end stuff's not selling as fast. And then, and that's not a good thing. And then you can see the affordability is historically low now, for homes.
And the Fed looks at this, by the way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
People need a place to live, and rents are through the roof right now too. So, I mean, we're seeing a little bit. I read an article today from NAR, the Florida realtors, and it was talking about that we've seen a little bit of decrease in rental prices, but I mean, I'm not seeing any of that here in Palm Beach County or Port St. Lucie.
Mm.
You know, not in the Treasure Coast. I mean, prices haven't gone down at all. If anything, they're up right now. I mean, we're rolling back into season here, so
Right.
So rents are going to get even higher because people are going to be eating them up.
Oh,
So this is a real problem right now, and especially for first-time buyers or young couples or young families that are trying to get into the market. People coming from other states are still in the same situation. You know, we're getting people in that, you know, they have, you know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 down if they're not cash, because they're coming out of markets like California, New York, New Jersey, Chicago that are expensive markets. So we are definitely seeing that. You know, but when you're moving around Florida, unless you're selling a home, if you're in a home right now, you're okay. If you've been in a home for the last 2 years, because, you know, I was talking to one of our clients who's looking to buy some rental property now a couple of days ago, you know, I'm talking about, and they bought here in Palm Beach Gardens, and they bought a little townhome, and they've got over $100,000 worth of equity in a year.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking at clients we put in houses a year and a half ago in Port St. Lucie, and they've got $200,000 to $300,000 worth of equity in those homes.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much everywhere.
Right. Right.
So we can look at this compared to 1 year ago. The monthly mortgage payment rose to $1,944 from $1,265, increase of 53%. So
yeah, that's what we're seeing.
I don't know what happened. I lost me.
Oh. Yeah, we're you know, and we're seeing that where that's really, you know, a lot of folks are taking pause. It's like, hey, do I purchase a home now because, you know, of that increase? And, you know, right now, when, you know, we'll go through some slides on this as far as, you know, the options, you know, nationwide, you know, still, you know, Florida is still, you know, lower than most areas. But with, you know, that being said, you know, a lot of people are taking pause and saying, hey, do I purchase now? So we'll talk about that a little later in the show here, some slides on that. But yeah, I mean, you know, I think the important thing is to look at, you know, your individual situation and see, you know, what is your rent payment compared to what you could own, you know, for here in Florida. That's certainly what we're looking at. And really, it's pretty much the same in most areas. Certainly in the Treasure Coast, you can still, you know, with rates where they are, you know, there's still an advantage to purchasing, obviously, in the long haul. But, you know, making an affordable decision for your family now, you know, that's important too. So, you know, it's an individual situation, you know, case by case that you need to look at when considering it. So, yeah.
I'm having a problem with my camera here.
Hmm.
We'll get it figured out in just a minute. Anyways, okay. I can switch slides.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the unemployment, Brent.
Oh yeah. The unemployment rate is like, what, it's 2.6%.
So that's what it was a couple of months ago in Palm Beach County.
Right.
So it is definitely it's definitely there we go.
Yeah.
Back. Look. Anyway, so the unemployment rate has dropped to a record low, and that was I was in April. I think this is right, March. Yeah, March.
2.6.
Dropped to 2.6. It's kind of hovered. If you notice here, it's hovered from, you know, below 3% in Palm Beach County. But if we look at Florida, we're at 2.7%, which is historical.
That's amazing.
For unemployment. And then this came out. So there were 315,000 jobs created in August. Unemployment rate rose from 3.6 to it was 3.5, right? It went to 3.7%.
Right.
But if you look at the gains, like professional and business services, healthcare, retail, and trade, retail trade. So basically everything we're doing here in Florida is where the jobs are. So, you know, even though we have you know, these even though we have all this inflation, there's still a ton of jobs in Florida, and there are a lot of jobs still out there. I think there's something like 40,000 jobs here in Florida that can be that they're still sitting there that no one's taking.
2 jobs for every 1 person looking is my understanding in Florida.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, I guess in a way, I mean, you know, I know that, you know, and I'm talking about this in another video, but I know that, you know, people say, well, we need higher paying jobs. This is great, but can we get some higher paying jobs? And I know that's important, especially with the prices of real estate right now in Florida and the rent. I know that some people are going back to their employers and saying, hey, look, I can't afford to live here. And the employer's actually giving raises to keep people in.
Mm-hmm.
I know that a lot of but these jobs that are coming in, they're financial services, like, you know, BlackRock coming to West Palm Beach. We have tech companies coming in, manufacturing. Sikorsky's hiring. I have a client coming in. They're growing. So we have aviation growing right now. Medical's out of control here.
That's huge. Yeah.
All of the law enforcement in Florida is hiring right now, pretty much in all the major cities. Orlando just hit I think they're 2.6%, the lowest they've ever been, is their unemployment rate. So
what's Miami at, Lee? I think it was one of the lowest.
1.7.
1.7% unemployment.
Miami's the #1 city in Florida for people moving to right now.
Unbelievable. I think
the expense of living in Miami. I mean, I think a condo in Miami, it costs you the same as it will in New York City now. And people are pouring out of these cities into Miami.
That's
yeah. And companies are pouring out,
and people are moving. You know, Floridians are moving out of Miami
because it's so expensive, and Fort Lauderdale because of the traffic and expense. But if you've lived in a city like Chicago, New York, and or you know, you're in LA or San Francisco, you know, pretty much you can get around the city of Miami, you know, Uber around the city, taxi around the city, and walk. I mean, it's a very walkable, you know, it's kind of like New York. I mean, we just don't have they do have the little train, but Miami as a city is, you know, most people just, you know, Uber everywhere or taxi everywhere, or they walk.
So many people vacation from New York City to Miami, so it's a natural, you know, so it's a bargain for them, you know what I mean?
Right.
And certainly was for years. And the crime rate is an all-time low in Miami as well. I think
well, the murder rate's one of the lowest in
any major city.
And it just got rated, we talked about this before, it just got rated the healthy and happiest city in the United States too. I mean, here are the numbers right here. This was the 15th of July, Chamber of Commerce came out. So, I mean, you read these numbers. So from New York to Florida, 61,728 driver's license. Now, this was the first 4 months. This is just the first 4 months of this year. So 61,728 driver's license changed from New York to Florida. New Jersey was 10,580. Connecticut to Florida was 4,000. California, 96,000, 9,600, Pennsylvania, 8,400, and Illinois, which would be Chicago, was 8,000. And the migration is mostly to Miami.
Yeah.
So, you know, so people with remote work, we were talking about that on our last video where we were talking about Miami. A lot of remote workers that are higher paid are moving into the city, and then just the lower cost of living, lower taxation, and year-round outdoor living. So, you know, people are getting tired of the cold.
Well, if you look closely, Lee, the New York to Florida, you know, if you look over to the right of that, you know, it was up 12% from 2021, which was, you know, well after COVID was in place, and up 55% compared to 2019. You see, there was already a trend, New Yorkers moving to Florida. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? For all the reasons, you know, that, you know, Florida offers. But how much it's increased since 2019, since COVID.
Well, you know, so many companies moved down here during COVID. So that was the deal, you know, and they just never went back up.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, why do we show this to you on a real estate side, right? So we're experiencing massive inflation that I know is just hurting a lot of people right now. Because you and I, everybody listening to this, we go to the gas station, we go to the grocery store. I have a family. Brent has a big family, has lots of kids, and little ones. So, we're all feeling this at the grocery store, the gas pump. It's cutting into vacation time. It's I think they showed I was watching Varney a couple of mornings ago, and they showed a without the hotel, just the tickets, the fast passes, and food and everything for a family of 4. It was $1,000 for one day at Universal Studios, right? I mean, the average family, and that's not including the hotel. You're looking at, a couple $100 a night minimum. If you're staying on property, it's more than that. But if they pay in fast passes, they weren't staying on property. So it's inflation's really affecting people. But with Florida, I mean, one thing we can say is that, there are lots of jobs here. So, and hopefully, people are able to, get into a better job. If you've gotten into a better job, leave a comment in the comment section. Tell us what you think about the job market, what's going on, with jobs here. I know that, some people are not experiencing this. Other people are. Some people are moving down from New York and New Jersey, and they're taking a little bit of a pay cut. Some are coming down, keeping the same pay. I know that Floridians here, how is it, if you're live in Florida, have you been in Florida? Have you been able to find a higher paying job? Leave that in the comments section. We'd love to know what's going on with you out there. But
a lot of people working from home too, and that it's a smooth transition. Everyone's situation is different, but nurses, they're getting jobs right away. I mean, this just seamless, the move. We
more of these traveling nurses, man.
Yeah.
We're seeing more of that than we've ever seen before. Traveling nurses. I mean, they make a ton of money. I mean, it's crazy.
The first, I won't say because it blew my mind. I
saw we had one not too long ago. She was making like $400,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy money they make.
I know it was. I saw a pay stub and I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, cops here in Florida are making 6 figures, I mean, like
the overtime,
Orlando, West Palm Beach, because of all the, the overtime, and because all the law enforcement in Florida is needs people right now. We need law enforcement. We don't have enough.
Yeah.
And so they're all making. My son's making, made $100,000. He's just turned 26 tomorrow.
And he's
or the 10th.
Sheriff, right? Deputy sheriff, and he has it's off duty service that he does.
Yeah, he does off duty and then overtime because they need deputies.
Right.
Or in where he is, and I don't want to say where he is, but where he is, if he moved to another area, I mean, he'd even make even more money.
Right.
I mean, he just likes where he's at, but it's there's the growth is producing jobs. So let's get back into housing. So if you're looking for a home right now, and these rates are you can qualify, but you're sitting and saying, wow, you know what? I can qualify, but it's going to put me, it's going to take away so much because obviously we're fighting inflation on the other side of the coin here too. So we want to give you some ideas on that. And I think we're back into a more normalized market. A lot of people are freaking out right now, especially in real estate. If you've been in real estate for a couple of years, you're having a heart attack because you think that the whole world's coming to an end. Right. And even like clients are, if they're selling their homes, their homes are sitting on the market 30 days, 50 days, 60 days now. So it's not selling in a day, or it's selling for, asking price or less because it was overpriced. So when you're seeing all this stuff right now, you're seeing prices coming down, you're seeing homes sitting on the market longer. We're seeing, excuse me, We're seeing homes sitting in the market longer. This is what 2019 looked like, right? And especially right now, we're sitting right here in the summer, moving into the fall. This is our slowest period. Because I remember a year ago looking at the market right now, and the same thing was happening. And all of a sudden, there was all this inventory on the market, and I'm telling people to run out and buy right now. And then all of a sudden it was like a rubber band, and it just popped back, and all the inventory within a week was gone. Once we hit September. So, towards the end of September. So that I don't believe that's going to happen this year. I think we're going to see more of a normal market. So it's not crashing. It's just decelerating some, because obviously we've got so many people out of the market now because of rates. So, one of the things I think we can do here is tell you a little bit about, what you can do. So I think this is a good slide. So you can expand your search area, right? So if you're in Palm Beach County, you're looking for a home. I was talking to one of our clients, and I said, they want a single family home. They're in a townhome. I'm like, go to Port St. Lucie, right? Cadence is about to start up. They're 2 weeks out. I have a video coming out on that. Also, there's Central Park. That's another community. Ryan's already selling in there. I wouldn't buy from Ryan. I would wait for Coulter and Taylor Morrison. They're coming in. They're going to be offering homes soon. There's Veranda Oaks, another community. So there's some new construction coming right now that I'm also seeing some homes hit in the market. Much less than what they were. They're more, I'm starting to see less of that overpriced home. So one thing that you can do is you can go to Port St. Lucie. It's 30 minutes from Donald Ross, 45 minutes an hour, depending on traffic, to West Palm, and buy a home. And, in a normal market, that market's going to see more equity. Brent, don't you agree?
I would agree. Absolutely.
Because before we were seeing, 10% or above in growth in the Treasure Coast than we were in Palm Beach County, because housing prices are so expensive here now. I think eventually Port St. Lucie will catch up, right? So if you're a young family, you move to Port St. Lucie, you live there for 5 years, your home's going to appreciate to a point. You can come and buy something in Palm Beach County. I can't, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that's definitely a possibility. Exploring alternative financing options. So, especially now too, I think there's options if you are in a rental right now, and you could offer, to purchase the rental and have the owner hold the paper. Right. That's definitely an option, I think, now, because, they don't have to pay capital gains taxes on that property. So they could hold the paper for 2-3 years for you. And then also looking for grants, right now there's Hometown Heroes, right? Gifts, from family members. But more importantly, for you guys that, I didn't really have my YouTube channel kind of started, over COVID, but we before COVID, Brent and I were doing deals where, and especially in Port St. Lucie, we were getting a seller credit for closing costs on almost every home,
on every deal. Pretty much
every deal. Yeah. I mean, a VA, we were like zero down on
zero down.
Zero. Yeah, almost every VA deal we did.
We had someone get a check at closing.
2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. We were doing it. I mean, we had, that's right. We had a client actually get a check back at closing on a VA, right?
Right.
So, So
and think about where they're now, Lee. Think about where they're at now.
I know.
In equity. You think about it for a second.
I know. I mean, these are people, and they were there. We have several people living in Port St. Lucie right now that, that we got them in right at the last. I mean, our client we were talking about here in Palm Beach Gardens. I mean, he didn't give up on me. This was 2019. It was towards the end. We have a few of those where the market was really picking up, like right around the COVID period, right? And it was just, when it was kind of, we were in that in between, the market was really starting to pick up. And, they were, I put in probably 6, 7, 8 offers on some of these houses, and they slid in, and these were FHA deals. I haven't done I didn't do an FHA deal after that. And matter of fact, his was the last one. I was talking to him the other day. And I was having to, keep people going, I'm like,
keep
like,
trying.
hey, don't give up,
Right.
keep your head up. We're gonna find the right house. And we did for a lot of people.
Oh,
And I mean, a lot of people were able to slide in at that last minute. So with that being said, they're right now, there's money to be had from sellers. I mean, they're sitting on their home. They have a tremendous amount of equity in it, right? It's nothing for them to do a $5,000, $10,000 credit, right?
Right.
As long as the house appraises, you can get a credit for $5,000 to $10,000, and then take that credit and buy down the rate.
That's right. For the buyer. That's
right.
Lee. That's a wonderful, one of the things we have that just became available. I was waiting for it. I was telling the folks we work with here, I said, the 2-1 buy down's coming. And basically what it is, let's say a rate you qualify for, let's say is 5.5, the first year would be 3.5. The second year would be 4.5. And then it would go to 5.5 for the last 28 years. And so I think that, that's the type of program that helps, people get into a lower rate initially the first 2 years. It's not an adjustable loan. It's fixed. It goes to that fixed program, 3.5, 4.5, and then 5.5 the rest of the way out. But that first year and a half, 2 years, you can take advantage of the lower rate. I think that's going to be below market. But at some point in time, rates will come back down. They will. And when they do, you can take advantage of the market at that point. Like you say, you marry the home, not the interest rate.
Right.
So that's a great strategy.
Well, I mean, right now too, there's, you're, as a buyer, you have more inventory on the market. You have the ability to negotiate the price, but instead of negotiating the price, I think it's way better to ask for the seller credit,
buy the rate down.
And buy the rate down. Right. And then if you, because you can always refinance, but you can't get the equity back. And I mean, we're still seeing prices increase. I mean, it's, right now prices are still increasing in South Florida, in Florida, period.
Yeah. It's a supply and demand thing.
Right.
Back to the basics, right?
As long as people are coming here for jobs, and as long as companies keep moving here, the market will see upward pressure. And I know there's people on this that have listened, there's going to listen to this video after the fact. I know we've gotten comments. I've gotten comments for the last 2 years that the market's going to crash in Florida. And I'm always coming back to, what are the indicators, right? So what are the indicators? You have to have indicators. And in some markets, we're going to see the market, probably prices come down some places. But anywhere you have, jobs coming in, and they're higher paying jobs, and they're moving into a market where homes are more expensive, they have to bring the salaries up and the income up for those jobs to meet the living expenses of those employees if they're going to get them. Yeah. So, and that's another thing that's going on right now in the job market, where companies that need people that can afford to pay them more money are offering them more money to come work for them. And so they can cover their expenses more.
Jobs drive the real estate market, period.
Right.
If there's no jobs, people will, and I can tell you from the front lines here, they always ask, what's the most I can qualify for? People always want to buy the nicest home. And I think it's natural that people it's their sanctuary, it's their home, it's where they live. Right. And so I think that, they really want to see, and they see it as an investment. And so, so the amount of money people make does drive the demand clearly, so with, unemployment at 2.6%, it's 2.7 statewide 3%.
Let's call it 3% in Palm Beach County. You know what I mean? Yeah. 1.7% in Miami. I don't know what Broward is.
Yeah.
But it's got to be fairly.
And it'll start to go up a little bit. It's actually it's kind of healthy. 3-4% is very, very low typically. Right. 5-6% is normal.
Right. I don't know if it's going to go up in Florida now, as long as companies keep moving here.
Right.
And starting businesses here too. I mean, you know,
it's very business friendly.
That, you know, anytime you see, you know, these financial companies moving in, these hedge funds and brokerages moving into Florida, you know, you have VC capital funds, you have hedge funds, you have brokerages. It creates a opportunity for entrepreneurs to bring their businesses in and get funded.
Right.
So if, you know, if you have a business idea, you take it to one of these VCs or these hedge funds or, you know, brokerages and get your deal funded. Also, it creates more money on the street. So there's just more capital out there right now in Florida for people to do things that they want to do. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of restaurants. I mean, we have restaurants opening up like crazy right now everywhere. And everywhere you go, they're packed.
They're not afraid to shut down. I mean, you know, I spoke to a woman today. She was interviewing here today. Actually, she lived in Sacramento and she ran a salon there and it ran a business, and, you know, they shut her down, you know, and so there's that confidence. I think people come here, it's not going to have, you know, there's going to be more of a measured response to things like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's the opinion of a lot of people are moving here from. She moved from California. Actually, she landed in Texas and then moved to Florida, ironically. So kind of got a taste of both. And she says, you know, she's grateful to be here. Sees it as a land of opportunity, you know. And
right. I cracked a tooth. I got to go to the dentist, and I was noticing, like, my wife has a pile of dentists that have just come into the area.
Right.
Offices.
Right.
Like, it's unbelievable.
If you run a business,
and Florida, I keep talking about it. My daughter working at Nordstrom's, I mean, she's busy all the time. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, she's a 19-year-old girl, you know, she's going to make like, I mean, she's working 25 hours a week. She's going to be making almost $1,000 a week. Your daughter does the same, looking after a family, you know, their kids. So, I want to wrap this up by showing something that just came out. This came out in the with the NAR. I got it today. Experian has now made it easier to include your rent. Rent can automatically be included in credit scores via new beta tests rollout by Experian. The company says to improve qualify rental scores by 14 points. Now, your landlord has to help you with this, but, you know, I think this is a great thing that's come out for renters, because they're going to be able to improve their rental score, because, you know, to get to a 700 credit score is almost impossible without a home.
Right.
So they're saying this improves scores by like 14 points. So you're sitting there right there at 680, 690. I mean, you could drop into a 700 credit score and qualify for a really nice loan.
We were looking at that spread, Lee, on a $400,000 loan the other day. The difference between a 670 score and a 700 score was $7,000 in closing costs for the same rate. It's just that's the dollar value. I mean, it's important. So I encourage people to take advantage of this if they're renting. Certainly the Boost program that Experian has as well, where they look for steady payments with your bank statement, and searches for, you know, steady payments for 12 months, and it'll add that as well. All those moves help that credit score, and I help people all day long with this, because it's so valuable when shopping for a mortgage. It makes all the difference. Yep.
All right, and there's a lot of good stuff coming out. It seems like over the last couple of years, the credit companies have been making it easier and easier to improve your credit, and they've been passing some bills to get rid of some things like, you know, old credit that was sitting on your credit, you know, that they wiped it off, and if the credit company couldn't, you know, verify it, it was gone immediately. And you didn't have to do anything. I mean, like, we saw people's credit scores come up dramatically. So
we did.
All that was really good. So, hey, let's wrap it up. If you have any comments on anything that we talked about today, and you're not on with us right now, and you're watching this video later, please leave those in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions for Brent and I, don't forget to subscribe for Brent's channel at Unitas Lending. and watch his videos if you're interested in mortgage information. He's dropping stuff every single day here lately, and it's good information. And if you have not subscribed for our channel, please go ahead and slap that subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our real estate tips and tours. We appreciate you watching, and be kind to each other, and we will see you next week. Okay. Thanks,
Sounds
Brent.
great. Thank you,
All
Lee.
right, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.